You have to invest as much or more in your people than you do in your platforms. Like the amount of AI that we're seeing is amazing.
It
But
is.
it's not tech that makes people leave a job. It's feeling disengaged. It's feeling overwhelmed. It's not feeling supported or
So you and your team sat down together late last year or early this year. You enjoyed these amazing sessions where you imagined your preferred future in great detail. Your strategic plan included all of these tactical next best steps with a timeline and assignments made to various team members, and you came out of those sessions ready to work positive, full of energy and innovation. So how's that plan working out for you? Things going according to your plan? I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett, and welcome back to the Work Positive Podcast, where we coach you to create a positive work culture so you grow people and profits. I told a client recently that I'm actually more surprised when things go according to plan than when they don't. I know that doesn't sound very positive to some of you, but really it is. I work positive, which means I set my expectations, my mental mindset, in such a way that I don't lose it when things go off the rails. That way I can respond rather than react to the ever-changing conditions. I take a cue from Jocko and say, good! My guest in this episode of the Work Positive Podcast has a new book out, Evolvability, which is about growing forward when things don't go according to plan. And that's really the key, right? To grow forward when things don't go according to plan. She's a best-selling author, an entrepreneur, and an expert in building resilient teams, leaders, and organizations. She spent the last 20 years or so working with some of the largest organizations around the globe. She lives on a ranch outside of Austin, Texas, with her husband and a menagerie of animals. So, hey, remind me to ask her about her animals, okay? Let's get our evolvability on in this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Work Positive community, Ann Grady is back, and I couldn't be happier. Ann, welcome to the Work Positive Podcast, my friend.
it is so good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it really is. Now, Work Positive Community is helping me remember to ask you about this menagerie of animals. And I'm not talking about your husband, okay?
Oh,
I'm
he
not talking.
counts. He counts.
Yeah, he's a member of the herd. But so who's outside now? The Wendy and Daisy are
We've
outside.
got Wendy and Daisy, two adopted donkeys, are outside along with their four cow sisters and brothers. So we have Laverne and Shirley, but when we got them, they were both pregnant. So now we have a Biscuit and a Gizmo, and the two donkeys, and a dog right behind me. We had a partridge in a pear tree, but it flew away.
But the dog ate it.
The dog ate it, unfortunately.
Tastes like chicken. Anyway, well, we love we love animals here in the Work Positive community, and no animals were damaged in the recording of this
Beginning of this
podcast.
podcast.
I
No.
can assure you. So, Wendy and Daisy are welcome to bray in here
You
and just
might get a Bray at some point. Definitely.
yeah.
She gets hungry and very vocal.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Well, they you said they're special needs
They
donkeys, and
are.
so
Are.
they need to eat. And so if you need to go feed them during this podcast, you feel
Okay.
free, free to jump up. I'll be right back. And
I tried
we'll
to tidy him over until I got done so that they would give me some peace.
Yeah, well, having been around a few donkeys in my life, a few other names for donkeys too, and I've been around those too, but having been around a few donkeys in my life, I can understand how loudly they do bray. So what we're talking about is during the recording of podcasts, during the doing of work, doing life, things don't go as we think they will, do they?
Not generally. No, life goes sideways on lots of different occasions. And I think the last few years have left a lot of people feeling just burned out and exhausted and overwhelmed and wondering why things seem like they're harder than they have to be.
Mm.
But fortunately, navigating that is just a skill set. And, I've had to learn the hard way. I'm trying to make it so that people don't have to recreate the wheel.
So do as I say, not as I did. Is that
Well, I had to
the?
learn to do over the last 22 years, raising my son, Evan, who's got some intense special needs. And
Hmm.
life never goes according to plan when you have a special needs kiddo. So it's
Yeah.
been between that and my own health journey of getting a tumor in my face from the stress of everything, I've had to learn to adapt and build that skill set so that when it
Hmm.
does go sideways, you stay grounded.
Wow, staying grounded is so important. In fact, my song for this year, and I'm going to show my age here, but good music's good music, right, Ann?
That's right.
The Eagles recorded a song, Peaceful Easy Feeling, a number of years
Yep.
ago. And one of the lines in that song is, because I'm already standing, I've got a peaceful, easy feeling because I'm already standing on the ground. And today, man, it's just so hard to feel like we're standing on the ground because it, rather than ground it, it's shifting sand. And yet you just said something that's mega important for me, and that is that these are duplicable skills. These are things we can learn. So in your new book, which by the way, there's a link over to Amazon to pick up your copy of Evolvability, which you'll want to do right now, unless you're on the Peloton or feeding the donkeys or whatever. But it'll be there when you get back.
Okay.
So in this book, you learn 6 skills that help us evolve our adaptability, hence evolvability. I know we're not supposed to choose from among our children, but which one of these 6 skills is your favorite?
I think they build upon each other, but the first, and it spells evolve, it's an acronym, and the first is
Okay.
emotional aptitude. And I think that's the foundation. Without that, everything else is really tough. So, think of yourself as an emotional thermostat, right? A thermostat reads the temperature of the room, or it takes its own temperature, it reads the temperature of the room, and it responds accordingly. And our job is to learn how to read, recognize, and respond to emotions so that we're intentional about the way we move through life rather than reacting with panic and profanity. We tend to think like change is this logistical process, but it's really an emotional process, and feelings are hard. It's why people drink, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with those feelings and those emotions has to come first.
Mm. I like the difference between reaction and response. Talk to
Mhm.
us about how this emotional adaptability at the beginning is so important related to reacting and responding.
Well, one is just to recognize how you show up. Our emotions are contagious. We're like a mood sparkler and we don't realize it, but our mood impacts everyone around us. And so, one of the things that you can do to start building self awareness is to check in with yourself every day throughout the day. And it sounds like a lot to put on your to do list. So, I like to pair it with something we already do. So, other than the kitchen, what's the one room that you're going to visit multiple times throughout today?
Well, now you're just making fun of bald-headed middle-aged men, aren't you?
Well, I think we'll all use the bathroom several times.
No,
Um,
I'm hearing it. It's okay.
so,
Yeah, I'm in the bathroom constantly. And
so
after the Liquid IV commercial during the Super
yeah,
Bowl,
yeah,
I'm more aware of why I'm there.
that's right. That's right. So I like to call it a mirror moment. When you're washing your hands, and
Okay.
you should always wash your hands, take a minute and look in the mirror and ask yourself, like, what emotions have been dominating my mood? And
Oh,
how do I
wow.
want to show up next to
Okay.
the next conversation, to the meeting?
James Clear would say we're stacking a habit there.
It's habit stack. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, I love that. And after COVID, we all wash our hands a lot more in the bathroom, right? The guys who used to walk out without washing
Yeah.
their hands, now they're stopping and washing their hands. So I'm just stacking a habit. I just look up
Yeah.
because inevitably there's a mirror in me. And I ask myself, say that question again.
What emotions am I feeling? And how do I want to show up next? And I think it's important because emotions are just like muscles. The ones you use most get stronger and they become your default. And if you're not regularly checking in with yourself, you end up reacting your way through emotions instead of being intentional about the ones you cultivate.
Mm,
So it's just a daily practice of going, okay, how am I feeling? How am I showing up? Another way, a super simple way to build self-awareness is to ask a question. And we ask for feedback a lot, right? But when we get feedback, we tend to justify and defend our behavior.
Mm.
So there's a quick twist, and it's ask for advice instead. Can you
Ah.
give me one piece of advice for how to show up better in this meeting tomorrow?
Mm.
Translation, how do I not throat punch Steve? Right. But we're basically
But he
asking.
deserves it, Ann.
He might, but feedback often feels like an ambush.
Oh
Advice
yeah.
feels like a gift. But yeah, the
Uh,
first step is self-awareness, and then it's empathy, right? It's creating that psychologically safe environment, whether that's because you're in charge of managing other people or you're just someone you want people to want to be around.
mm.
It's creating that environment where you're not just investing in your platforms and your AI, you're investing in your people.
Ooh,
Um,
say that again for the folks on the back row.
you have to invest as much or more in your people than you do in your platforms. Like
Mm,
the amount of AI that we're seeing is amazing,
it
but
is.
it's not tech that makes people leave a job. It's feeling disengaged, it's feeling overwhelmed, it's not
Mm,
feeling supported or appreciated. So you can have a great system, but if you're not supporting the people within it, right, and you're not meeting them where they are, you're missing an opportunity. But perhaps the most important part of this emotional thermostat is regulating your emotions. And I had to learn to do this because my doctor was like, look, if you don't learn how to deal with stress differently with your son, you're going to get sick again and you probably won't be so lucky.
mm,
And so the tool that I learned that has really changed my life is to recognize that you can't think your way out of stress and anxiety. We
mm,
tend to try to analyze it. Why am I stressed? Why do I feel anxious? What happened to cause that?
mm,
You can't think your way out of a feeling, and stress and anxiety are physical sensations.
mm,
So if you think about, like, your listeners can do this right now, right? Think about
mhm,
something that's annoying you or causing you stress. It doesn't have to be your biggest problem. It could be something just like mildly humming in the background, and pay attention to what your body does, because panic doesn't usually show up as craziness. It shows up as a tight jaw or as shallow breathing or wearing your shoulders as earrings. And when you're able to recognize that, you're not changing the problem, but you're changing the message your body is sending you about it, right? So
mm,
when you feel that physical sensation, you bring yourself out of the stress spiral so that you can
mm,
take back control. So
mm,
don't try to think your way out of anxiety and stress. Now, worry, on the other hand, is the cognitive part of anxiety. And I don't know about you, I'm a huge worrier. I always have been. And so one of the tools that was most helpful that I learned was anytime you're stuck in worry, you can't control the intrusive thought. You have no control over it. But worrying or dwelling and ruminating on that thought is
mm.
where you get to take back control. So
Yeah.
just because you have a thought doesn't mean you have to give it a microphone.
Mm,
Most of our thoughts are kind of the mental equivalent of junk mail.
mm,
And when you have that worry, being able to use this simple phrase, oh, I'm having a thought that I'm going to screw this up again, or I'm having a thought that this is not going to work out. Just that simple, I'm having a thought that helps you step outside of the thought and observe it. And that little bit of distance creates the space your brain needs to calm.
mm. And to find that calm in the midst of the worry or the anxiety or whatever. I love
Mhm.
the wearing your shoulders as earrings, by the way. I don't think I've ever heard that metaphor before. So my body is constantly trying to give me clues. Hey, you seem upset about this. Hey, you're uptight about this. Oh, you've been to the bathroom all morning. What's your gut telling you? Those kinds of things. So, how do I begin to interpret? Well, first of all, I got to become aware of what my body is doing, right? And
Right.
so many times it seems like we just gloss right over. We're running 100 miles an hour, and I'm neglecting my body. Is that kind of what you did with all that stress that led to that tumor?
Yeah, people kept telling me to take care of myself, and I was sarcastic, like, oh, in between running a business and managing a team and being a mom to a special needs kid and trying to fall in love and get married and raise a daughter and somehow still be sexy, fit, and fun, like, I'll just go ahead and take a spa day. I just didn't think it was possible to do what they were telling me I needed to do. So I had to, the situation itself was not changing. My
Mm,
son was sick and I
mm,
was his primary caregiver.
mm,
I had to figure out different ways to manage that emotion. So it doesn't change the emotion, but here's the thing most of us don't recognize. No one likes uncomfortable emotions. Grief, sadness, anxiety, fear, no one wants them. So
mm,
what do? Well, we try to numb them. usually in unhealthy ways.
Yeah,
But when we,
self-medicate. Mm-hmm.
yeah, or we shop or we drink or we do whatever just so we don't have
Mm-hmm.
to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But that extends not only how long, it extends the intensity and the duration with which you feel the emotion. So you're actually
Mm-hmm.
exacerbating it. Here's the crazy thing: intense emotional reactions are like a wave, they dissipate after 90 seconds if you don't
Mm-hmm.
fuel them with your thoughts. So you have to learn to sit in the suck and ride the wave. Right. I imagine like being picked up off my feet by the swell of an ocean and to like, then you get set back down at some point. You will get set back down. But when you step outside and pay attention to anything relating to your physical sensations, things you can taste, touch, see, smell, feel,
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing yourself back into the moment. And when your brain comes back to the moment, it knows you're safe. So
And
it can
that's
get
the
out
place where
of
you're
this.
grounded then,
Right,
right?
right. So you're
Yeah.
not in this hyper alert mode all the time. You have to, that's why I suggest doing it when you go to the bathroom, right? You're going to be in there anyway.
Yeah.
Check in with yourself and pay attention
Mm.
to how your emotions are showing up, how they're making you feel, how they're making you behave. And this becomes a split second thing that you do. It's not like you're spending an hour journaling inside the stall. You're just taking a quick moment. You're just taking a quick
Yeah,
moment to
that would
check
be
in with
kind of
yourself.
weird.
That would be kind of weird.
Yeah, so we're people leaders here in the work positive community, so we tend to be more comfortable with emotional intelligence and adaptability and our feelings. But I'm sure if not us, then we know someone who may say, "I'm washing my hands, and you want me to ask myself how I'm feeling?"
Hmm.
I really like that other question. How am I showing up?
Hmm.
But that's my interpretation of how I'm showing up. So how for those who are less comfortable with exploring feelings, how's a really good way of thinking about what's going on with me right now?
I think it's, you can't, so one of my favorite quotes, in Man's Search for Meaning
Mm,
is there's a space between the stimulus and the response. And in that space lies your ability to think about how you want to move forward intentionally. And what's happened is we're in such a state of fight or flight. It's become
mm,
so chronic.
mm.
The human brain has something called a negativity bias, right? It's our built-in
Right.
protection mechanism. So we're constantly scanning the environment for threats.
Yeah.
Change and uncertainty after death are the greatest threat of all to the human brain. Like your
Mm,
brain would literally rather be predictably unhappy than risk being unpredictably better. So you
mm,
have to start recognizing the, if you're not comfortable naming the emotion, feel the physical feelings. So you
mm,
might notice that when this issue comes up or this person comes around or it's in this part of your day or in this particular meeting, your jaw tightens up and your stomach clenches.
mm,
That's data, right? So what
mm,
you're
mm.
doing is you're learning how to change your relationship with that input because your body needs it. It's not that anything's wrong. Like the best thing a leader can do is normalize discomfort. Right.
Mm.
I hate these. I mean, I love the idea of happiness, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we live in this $11 billion happiness culture, and that's just in the United States. And you're not supposed to be happy all the time. Like, it's okay to not be okay. And I think the leaders that are really helping their team stay engaged and productive are meeting them where they are. It's not like, don't come out of that meeting until you have a smile on your face, Bob. Right? It's like this is a safe space to say you're having a crappy day, and
Yeah.
that's okay. It doesn't need to
Mhm.
turn into a gripe session, but it needs to be safe for people to make mistakes, to show up warts and all.
Mm.
And for those who are not keen on naming the emotion, is just pay attention to your physical sensations
Yeah. Is my
because
respiration rapid? Is my stomach turning over? Have I got tightness in my
yeah.
chest? Oh, am I hurting in my
Are you
shoulders?
breathing from your stomach or from your lungs? I mean, not your
Mm.
lungs, your chest, right?
Yeah.
So when
Right.
you're taking breaths from your chest, you're breathing more shallowly. Your brain doesn't get enough oxygen. So deep diaphragmatic breathing, something as
Mm.
simple as taking a deep belly breath in and extending the exhale, three of those starts to reset your entire nervous system.
I
You're
know. It's like
just
It's like
Yeah.
going back to a default, to the place
Right.
you were supposed to be living. Well, I love laughter. I mean, I laugh at myself. I'm a great source of Fawcett. I can't believe you did that. What were you thinking? Oh, wait, you weren't. You know,
Oh yeah, I laugh at myself all the time.
I also laugh at other people, but I hope they laugh too. So I'm laughing with them instead of at them because I mean, they just do funny stuff. Our almost 6-year-old granddaughter, she thinks I'm the funniest human being on the planet because I
Oh,
tell her dad jokes, right? And I love a good dad joke. Some of them I have to explain because she's only 6, but I mean, the role of laughter is so vitally important. I mean, we can go back to Norman Cousins back in the 60s, right? Who did the study with watching, I think it was Three Stooges videos or something like that. Anyway, my maybe that's my favorite, and that's why I'm remembering. It says Three Stooges, but they were watching funny videos, and it had a healing, curative effect.
yeah. So I've been studying resilience for over 2 decades. And one of the first things I do when I'm hit with a really tough situation is I feel the feelings, right? I sit in the suck, hug that
Yeah,
monster,
yeah,
get in there. But then I
embrace
watch
it.
a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
You know, when we found Evan had to be transported by ambulance because he had a psychotic episode and lived 2,000 miles away at the time. It was during COVID. I couldn't get to him. And I was upset and
Uh,
ashamed that I couldn't be there for my son. And I just had
uh,
all of these emotions and it was
sure.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I felt it. But then I watched Tom Papa has a great Netflix comedy special called You're Doing Great. It's a clean stand up
Uh-huh.
routine. So you can share it with your whole family or your team. But laughter signals safety to your brain. So
Mm,
when you're in a state of threat and hypervigilance, you're not only are you not creative and innovative, but you can't have empathy or be pro-social. You don't have self-control. You're not regulated. So
mm,
laughter is a really fast way to just signal to your brain that you're safe. And it's so good for you. I mean, it is
mm.
truly like health building to laugh. The more you do it, the healthier you are. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, yeah. My wife's definition of well, her love language is for us to spend time together in the evenings
Oh.
and watch whatever she wants to watch. Primarily, I mean, occasionally I get to watch me, but I really don't care. So I laugh out loud at stuff that's just hilarious. I mean, maybe it wasn't intended to be funny, but it was ironic or paradoxical or something, and I'm just
Yeah.
laughing. And I look over there at her and I say, "That was funny. Come on." And she'll say, "I'm laughing on the inside." So just because somebody doesn't laugh out loud, right, doesn't mean that they don't find it humorous. It is still releasing
Correct.
the endorphins and dopamine. So I
Correct.
love it. So be that emotional thermostat. You know, we've got so many smart thermostats now. You can set them in ranges. So I'm thinking that we can set our own ranges of emotions and acceptable responses, right?
That's a really great way to think about it because your resilience and your adaptability is kind of like a buffer zone, right? You're not going to, you can't always control the events or the changes or the
I can
uncertainty,
rarely, if ever, control the events.
right? But you can build your capacity to meet it.
Hmm.
You can train your nervous system and your brain to respond and react differently under stress and pressure. You just have
Uh-huh.
to train yourself to do it. And just like any other skill, the more you practice it, the easier it
The
gets.
better you get at it. Yeah. Well, it's like Jocko says, you know, whatever happens, good. You know,
Right.
just respond that good, which means I'm recognizing I can't change it, but I do get to choose how I respond to that. Okay. Let me ask you a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. You just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, strengths, and personalized next steps. Get your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now. Okay, so that Ann Grady is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. I am just absolutely ecstatic to have you back on. Evolvability is the name of her latest book, so you can click the link in the show notes and go over to Amazon or just next time you're there, look it up. And then also, we're going to talk more about a website that can help you discover your own evolvability and where you are on developing that skill set at myevolvability.com. So we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But if you want to go ahead and click on that link, help yourself. We'd love for you to interact as you're listening here. So that's the first of your favorite of 6 skills. Okay, so that's your number one favorite child. That's the one that'll take care of you when you're old, right? So what's your second one of the 6 that you really like? Is it step 2?
It is really, it
Okay.
truly is. It's your values. When plans shift, relationships change, jobs come and go, life happens, but your values are the principles that frame your decisions, your behavior, your expectations. They really determine which path you take and how you want to show up along the way and who you want to be when you get there. So when everything around you is changing, what happens is we usually default to fear, urgency, and convenience. And
Mm,
those are not ingredients for growth, they're ingredients for burnout.
mm,
Instead, whether it's with your team, your family, or just you personally, conduct a values audit. Think about the most important values that you want to guide your behavior. So that's the first step. What are the top 2 or 3 values that you want to guide your team or your family? And we should be part of co-creating these values, right? So if
mm.
you're doing it with a team or a family, you're voting on these things. But just the value itself is great, but it doesn't do much. Like it's wonderful to say you value integrity, but what does that mean? The
What does
key
it
is
look
coming
like? What's
right.
behavior
So
behind that for you?
exactly. So that's the key. What are the observable behaviors to where if I watched you for a week or two, would I know what you value based on your behavior, not your words?
Absolutely, I
And
would.
just that becomes your frame for every hard decision. It
Mm,
doesn't make hard decisions easier, but it makes them more clear. Instead of asking, what do I do? The question should be, what's most important? And how do
mm,
I honor that in my choice?
mm, mm, mm,
And it doesn't make the choices easier, but you do at least know you're headed in the right direction. The hardest choice that Jay and I, my husband and I, ever had to make was when Evan was 15 years old. He was not safe anymore living at home. We were not
mm,
safe. I had already gotten sick. Our daughter was
mm,
struggling.
mm,
And our psychiatrist for Evan said, look, you can keep him home and ruin your health, your family, your marriage, or you can get him the help he really needs. And the problem
wow.
was that we live in Texas, and the closest program that could take him and meet his needs was 2,000 miles away in Idaho.
Mm,
And that decision tormented us, like kept us up at
yeah.
night. I felt like a failure for sending him away and spending our
Mm,
life savings to do it. But on the other
yeah.
hand, I knew he needed round the clock help. So we vacillated. We made pros and cons. We went back and forth daily. And then we asked the different question: what's most important right now? It was our
Mm,
family.
mm,
What choice reflects that?
mm,
Truly
mm,
getting Evan the help he need, regardless of where it is, what it costs. Our family needed to heal. Now I can
mm.
look back now with perspective years later and know it was 100% the right decision, but I didn't know that at the time.
No, because you didn't know the outcome, what that would
Right.
be.
But you
Mm.
always know that when you're making decisions based in your values, that you're staying grounded in what's most important rather than getting carried away with chaos.
Oh, wow, that's so well said. Because the chaos will drive you towards trying to manipulate the outcomes. And we see this in work cultures all the time. I want to know if it's fight or flight, right? Or if I'm about to fall into dread or fear. I want to know this is going to work before I get started. I want to know there's not a saber-toothed tiger there that's going to eat this caveman, right? And but you simply can't control the outcomes. You just make the best decision you can at the time. So for me, I've got 6 value statements.
Okay.
And when I find myself in those moments of choice, I become aware, and then, and I'm talking to myself, feeding myself back those value statements. I'm like, hey, Fawcett, I love regardless is your first value statement, and you're making your love conditional right now. So
Yeah.
back up. What does it mean to love regardless in this situation? And I take one of those oxygenating deep breaths, and I
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm going to act like I love regardless here. So
I absolutely love that. That's fantastic.
Teams can do that same thing in a work culture, though, right?
Yes. Yes. When I think leaders right now are facing a lot of resistance, but it's not resistance, it's fear. And
Mm,
the way that you dissipate fear is to be okay with the uncertainty, right? To teach people to embrace that discomfort instead of fear it or fight it.
mm,
But the leader models that. So if
hmm
I'm looking at my team, I want them to work with me to brainstorm the values that we all think should guide our team's behavior.
hmm
And then as a team, we define what that looks like.
Yeah.
Now you have a shared playbook, right? When people know what's expected, you don't have to hold them accountable. They choose it because it's
And
not assumed, it's articulated. And so
right.
creating these cultures does not happen on accident. And it takes
Mm-mm.
about 18 months to completely turn around a culture if everybody's on the same page. But something
And
like
wants to
70,
turn it around, right? What's
right.
wrong
And
with the culture we've got?
well, that's the thing. About 70% of initiatives, change initiatives fail, and not because of the logistical issues behind it,
Mm-mm.
right? It's because we're not preparing the people for
Exactly.
the shift.
Exactly. You remind me, I think it was Leora Rusi came on here, was talking about how many failures there are, and it's at least 70% around like introducing a new CRM.
Yeah.
And we spend all this time, energy, and money and get all these proposals around the new CRM, but how much time and energy and effort do we spend preparing the people who are actually going to use the CRM? So at the end of the day, it's about just helping create the safety, the security. We can do this together, and then the ability to call yourself out as well as work with other people. Hey, I thought we said
Yeah.
this, and I felt myself doing that. I just want to apologize to the team for that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the great leaders, today's leaders are faced with so much. They're supposed to
Mm,
like inspire like Oprah and execute like Elon and coach like Ted Lasso and
right.
manage your existential crisis and your lunch choices. Like they just have to do so much.
And you do it all in 8 hours a day, right?
Right. But you have to invest in those people if you want them to invest in theirs. And
Mm,
that means you have to give them tools, not just hope they figure it out along the way,
mm,
because those tools are replicable, right? You can,
yes,
once you learn them,
right.
you can spread them and teach people. And
We
I think
can.
the companies that invest in their leaders as much as they do their technology are the ones that have just transformational cultures. I see it time and again. I get to work with so many cool companies, Google, Lockheed, Johnson and Johnson, Microsoft. I'm able to see what the leaders who are really successful. And what's interesting is it's not usually corporate wide. It's pockets within the organization. It's this department has learned how to do this really well because they have a leader who's embraced that. It's
Mhm.
usually not this 500,000 person organization all decided to do
No.
this. It happens one person at a time. Why
Oh, it
not make that
does.
person you, right?
Right, one team at a time, and I literally think piloting with teams is the best way to go
Yes,
rather than trying to roll it out enterprise wide because that's just a
100%.
recipe for disaster. Because there's no way you can prepare all those people for what's coming, but you can do it, as you said, in pockets. Ann Grady is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. As you can tell, I'm the president of her fan club. So, Evolvability has four other skills. So, get yourself a copy today. Again, that link over to Amazon to get yours is in the show notes. MyEvolvability.com is also a link in the show notes. Tell us what we're going to find when we go to MyEvolvability.com.
So there is an evolvability index. It's basically a tool for you to identify how adaptable you are right now. And each question, it's very short, but each question is a different skill that can help you navigate change and uncertainty and show up intentionally. I'd love to come back on and we can explain the other four skills, but the last one I will mention is
Okay.
optimization, right? Like when you think about the way we live, it's kind of nuts. We protect our money.
No, it is nuts. Let's
It
just
is
call it
nuts,
what
right?
it
We
is.
we protect our money with banks and budgets. We protect our data with passwords. We protect our home with locks, but when it comes to our time, energy, and attention, we just pass it out like free samples at Costco. If we want to survive life, let alone enjoy it,
Mm.
then we have to protect those resources. And again, those are just skills.
Yeah, that can be learned. We don't have to have a notification binging at us for everything on our smartphone and give away all our energy to that, do we?
Do you know how much time the average adult spends on their phone every month?
I give up. How much?
2.5 months, or every year, 2.5 months of the year, the average adult spends on their phone. 11 to 14-year-olds are on their phone 9 hours a day. That's more than a full-time job. And it all comes with a cost. Phones aren't the enemy, but they are designed to hijack your attention. So if we're letting the tech use us,
Mm,
that's when it becomes a problem, right? When
mm.
we're using it intentionally and not just reaching for it out of habit or boredom or to not have to feel something
Or needing a dopamine hit.
or needing a dopamine hit. Yeah, 100%. We have to protect our resources.
Wow. I'll brag on one of my coaching clients for a moment. Yesterday we had a session and he began by saying, focus really works. I have put my phone out of reach. He was just talking about how he'd made it inaccessible. Sean Aker talks about the 20-second rule, right? So he just put it out of 20 seconds reach, and that's what we talked about. He says it's really working. I'm so much more focused. I'm more confident, and these kinds of things. And I was just like, winner, winner, chicken dinner. I mean, you got to love that, right?
And I love Sean. And one of his other tips is one that I live by, and it will change your life. And it is go 30 minutes in the morning without your phone.
Hmm.
They've linked early morning phone use to low cognitive bandwidth, more emotional reactivity. You're more likely to have stress and be dysregulated. So, you want to change your life, charge your phone in a different room. I know
Hmm.
people are gasping, but they make alarm clocks. They're
Well,
available still.
yeah. Well, here's the
It'll
cool
change your
thing,
life.
man. I pay the bill. My phone does not pay its own bill. I pay the bill, so I get to choose when and how I use it, right?
Exactly.
All right. Go to myevolvability.com. See where you are in these 6 skills, and Anne is your partner in helping you develop these 6 skills more. Obviously, the upside is huge. Not only is your work going to be more positive, but don't look now, but your life will be too. So, Anne, Work Positive Community always wants to know from my guests, so I got to ask you, focusing on evolvability, right? What's one thing we in Work Positive Community can do starting today to create the kind of positive work culture that we're talking about?
Listen, listen. The best cultures come from curiosity instead of judgment. Pay attention to what people are paying attention to and where they are right now, and meet them where they are. Validate those difficult experiences, because when you don't acknowledge the difficult emotions, they don't go away. They leak out everywhere. So listen, ask good questions, be curious. And the other is just be incredibly appreciative and grateful with your employees. I think it's something like 80% of employees who leave cite lack of appreciation as the number one reason. It costs nothing, but we forget it's not just great job. Use the word because. You did a great job on that report because it synthesized really complex information and made it simple. I really appreciate the way you spoke in that up in that meeting yesterday because you allowed everyone's voice to be heard. So the word because is huge. It doesn't cost a thing and it can transform a team. Every meeting should be started with a quick round of gratitude tag. I'm a firm believer in it.
Well, I am grateful for you, Ann Grady. Thanks for coming
Likewise.
back on the Work Positive podcast. I've learned a lot. I know the Work Positive community has as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me back.
I'm so grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett, or you can click the link in your show notes. When you send your connection request, mention you're a Work Positive podcast listener, because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. It's a $19.95 value, but I want to share it with you free because it contains practical strategies that I personally use with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore in that book how to create a positive work culture, and we do so again in every episode of this podcast. Our LinkedIn connection allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges, so feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I personally read and respond to all those messages because I genuinely care about your work positive success. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.